All right. G'day, sand trackers and barefooters. It's Jono Break here, and this is take two. For those of you who missed our 5 second interlude, apparently I was coming outside with, so I'm just trying to figure this thing out as we go along. This is my first live feed on Business in Bare Feet. It's not my first live feed on Business in Bare Feet. It's my first live feed on Instagram, and so we're just going to go and see how this works. And we've been listening to some of our audience and seeing a greater response from this channel. So we're excited to be here this morning, and this will be shared across to our other channels later on in the day. Hope you're doing well. It's Tuesday morning. It's live feed time, and funnily enough, today we're talking about listening. And it was interesting this week. A great friend of Business in Bare Feet and Sandtrax, making tea, or at making tea, if you're looking for her handle. She made a comment, and she posted about some comments about market research today. Sorry, not today, but recently. And I made a comment to her and said what it was a great statement, and I wanted to add to that that there is this constant posture of listening. There's this constant thing that we need to be doing to be able to really be able to listen to our market and to engage them in a special way. And so it just got me thinking a lot. G'day, David. How are you, mate? Scott, good to see you. And I'm not sure. Apparently, I can bring Mark and Linda into this somehow, and I have no idea how to do that. So we'll figure this out and maybe do it right next week. But it got me thinking. This whole posture of market research, and anytime I come from a marketing background, and anytime market research is that incredible opportunity for you to be able to listen. For you to be able to listen to your market, for you to be able to find out really good raw data without your bias in there. But there's a challenge because this is very, very difficult. And so one of the things when we're looking at market research, and David, hang on the line, man, because you get an honorary mention as well. But one of the things we look at market research, is we want to find out the stuff that we don't know, maybe because of our biases, that help us to understand what we really should be targeting to our market. Which gets me to last week's entrepreneur fireside chat, which we did with David Mahajalo from Fresh Ag Tech. And we'll hopefully get some links up there for you to them. But David, one of the things that you talked about last week was that you're a bunch of engineers, and you started marketing and started talking to your market and realized that there was something much more fundamentally simple going on, and that you needed to be listening in a very different way and actually listening to your market. And so it just got me thinking, because I mean, this is I'm often surprised by engineers. Sorry, mate, but I work with a lot of them, and so when I heard them talk about that they learned that they were not listening, that they needed to listen better to their market, they needed to understand their market and connect with them in a different way. It wasn't just about the product, the tech, and the sell. It was about who they were actually marketing to. And I love this. We talk a lot about communication in my world. I do a lot of leadership coaching, executive coaching, business coaching, stuff like that. And we always say it doesn't matter what you're communicating. Communication is what the listener does. All right. And so if your market's not doing what they should be doing, then it's what you're communicating, not what they're doing. All right. Your job is to actually fit into their market. Yeah. Okay. You might be disrupting something. You might be coming with something new, but it's always a variation. It's helping them understand how they connect with you. And so one of the things I loved about these guys was that they just had a posture of listening. And so as they understood that, they're dealing with farmers, for example. All right. So farmers can sometimes be the most removed from technological giants, particularly smaller independent farmers. If you go and deal with big corporations, it might be a little different. And so they found that they were dealing with people who valued family, they valued community, they valued the land. They valued those smaller, intimate relationships. And so they couldn't just sell a software product. So they had to listen to be able to hear that. Or they could have just kept push, and maybe eventually sold one or two. But the bottom line is that whole relationship and that whole ability to connect came out of their posture of listening. All right. So here I am this week, surprised by engineers. Map my apple, thank you. And so what I would like to do is then just talk about, okay, so why is this so difficult for companies? Now, when I used to do a lot of my marketing work, I'd be saying, always be in a posture of gathering research. And as you're gathering research, always be in a posture of marketing. Okay, so market research can be marketing, and marketing is always market research. And so, what I mean by that is we're always gathering data. We're always finding ways for our customers to feedback, for our clients, for our maybe even for our team, maybe for our suppliers. We need to find those feedback loops. How can we be better? How can we provide a better space? How can we be more astute in the market? How can we target better? How can we control what we're doing? How can we improve our product? This constant state of improvement, this constant state of refining and refreshing comes out of that ability to listen. So who should we listen to? All right, so I'm talking primarily to startups right now, but we've got to be listening to ourselves. But this really applies to any leader in any business. All right, we need to be listening to ourselves. We need to understand what are the biases, what are the beliefs, what are the things that inhibit me from, I come across so many businesses that so pig-headedly say, well, this is just the way we do it. And if the customer doesn't like it, bad luck. And it's amazing how many of them are out of business about 2 or 3, 6 months down the track because they don't listen, because they don't adapt, okay? So one of the real postures of listening is then the adaptation, the agility to be able to shift and to pivot. For example, if we'd have all ignored this virus that's just come and hasn't gone yet, but if we'd just all ignored this virus, there's a lot more businesses that would have failed. There are a lot failing anyway, unfortunately, but there's a lot more that would have failed if they weren't listening, if they didn't pivot to making hand sanitizers and face masks and providing support services or whatever it might be, putting out the social distancing markers in the stores, things that allowed them to trade again, things that allowed them to be able to move on. If they didn't do those things, then they wouldn't adapt, and then they would be, they'd be finished today. So we've got to listen to ourselves first. We of course need to listen to our customers, so when we think about market research, and I'm talking about market research as the business posture of listening. So when we think about market research, obviously, we go straight to customers, okay? But what about your suppliers? What about your internal team? What about your co-founder? What about your bank? What about your investors? Those sorts of people. What else is going on in the market? Okay, so think about those people. So yes, we do need to listen to our customers. We need to be constantly asking our customers questions. It's okay for a customer to put bad feedback or a bad review out on Google or Facebook, but what's great is when you make it right. Okay, and you see businesses do this extremely well. You see some where they might, they'll make it right. They'll send you a gift. They maybe resend the product, figure out how to do it better, differently. Or you see those ones where they get defensive. Oh, how dare you say that? Well, we've got thousands of other customers and they all say this. Bad thing to do. Always be listening to, and even in those nuances, in those complaints, what is my customer really saying here? What is the need that I haven't met? Now, yeah, there may be an assessment that they're not a target customer, but that doesn't mean you don't treat them right because everybody else is watching. Okay, so think about that in terms of our customers. What about our competitors? We're always listening to our competitors, listening to our market. What's going on around us? What are people saying? What are we doing right now? Are we pushing something that is a dead market because we're not listening to competitors? Do we have competitors? If we don't, I get a little nervous, okay, to be perfectly honest. And so understanding our competitors. And then there's just what's going on in the world. I mentioned, we're in the middle of this coronavirus. It's 2020 if you're watching this sometime in the future. But we've got a virus going on now. We've got, in some parts of the world, like Australia, you've got serious lockdowns taking place. Here in the US, it's a bit more opened up. And so you've got different people. People have adapted to a different way of life. Whole industries have jumped up and appeared around this virus and the future of things like air travel and accommodation, which, Mark and Linda are really taking hold of in their nomad stays. And so there's all those sorts of things, listening to the market, paying attention to the market, seeing where it's at and seeing where you can be responsive. So the world in general will teach us a lot about what's going on. So what does it take to listen well? Okay, let's have a think about this for a minute. So firstly, we got to decide to listen. And one of the things I loved about the interview last week, David, if you're still with us, was their openness. Their openness to ideas, their openness to listening to their customer, their openness to, hey, we haven't got this 100% right. We need the right people around it in terms of the advisors they get, all that sort of thing. And so it was just one of those things that really struck me in terms of, as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, always, yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, he's backing me up there. You're a good man. And always remaining open. Always remaining open. And that doesn't mean that you're floppy and all over the place. It just means that you're open to the fact that there is another and maybe a better possibility, or maybe you assess that that's not my market and I don't need to go there, and that's okay too. But if you're open, you can see it, you can assess it, and then you can make a decision. All right. And so that openness becomes very, very important. Secondly, we've got to have the right set of ears. All right. They always say God gave us one mouth and two ears for a reason. We should listen twice as much as we talk, which kind of kills this whole idea, because I talk. The way I listen here is I'm watching the comments coming up on Instagram, and but listening twice as much as we talk, but listening more. Okay, what is that posture of listening? This is a great leadership tip. This is a really good leadership principle for anyone, specifically people in business, because it ties into our product, it ties into the success of our business, it ties into the team that we're going to build, it ties into the investors we might bring on board and how we interact with them, how we meet people's needs better, how we become more effective. And so we've got to have the right set of ears, which means that we are open and listening. Thirdly, I think an understanding of the filters that bind us up. Okay, remember I talked about one of the things that we've got to actually really listen to ourselves. So when you have a reaction to something, let's say a customer says something that you don't like about your product, okay, and you find that, hey, John Wood, good to see you, man, and you find that they're reacting to you. You again, you have that choice to react back or to be proactive back, okay, and so often we will, for example, if we've built the business ourselves, or we take pride in our work, we take pride in our team, and then somebody criticizes that, it's really easy. I had a buddy of mine said, sometimes you just got to tell someone their baby's ugly, and you go and try and do that to a newborn's mum, they'll deck you. and so this is something we've got to honestly, unfilteredly look at and understand. Well, what is it in me that causes me to react when somebody criticizes me? And so the filters, the worst part is the filters are often the reason why we don't actually gather research, or we don't gather client surveys and those sorts of things in the first place, because what if they say something bad? All right. Well, if you're asking them and they're saying something bad to you, at least they're saying it to you and not to everybody else out there. Now, chances are they possibly are as well. But understand that if you're getting it directly, this is just a chance for you to grow. This is a chance for you to learn. It's like any conflict. This is where you get something out of it for yourself. All right. This is not about them attacking you. Okay. This is about what can I learn and grow from here. Okay. So understanding what binds us up in terms of what we understand, what filters we have. This probably ties into the stuff that binds us up, but asking unfiltered questions. All right. And so often what we'll do is we'll ask questions, and I've seen these all the time in market research, where we ask a bunch of questions either we don't need to ask, or we ask questions in a way that gives us the results that we really want. And this is really endemic when you're doing research in government, for example, where a minister or a public servant wants to hear a certain language or hear a certain thing to support their case, and they can then sell that to the media or whatever it might be. But it's very, very common, and I see it a lot in business as well. Let's ask the questions, even the way we might get no answer, like a slider that, and we have 95% of people are on the far right saying it's awesome, but our customer base is declining. They're not returning because we're not asking the right questions. Okay, we're not finding out what is the detail, the things that they need to have that maybe we're not providing them. Maybe it's not helping us grow and be more agile. So we need to ask better questions. All right, we need to be able to understand if we have a client exiting. Do we have a client exit interview, just like a team member? Do we have a team member exit interview? What are the things we could have that can give us some real good, honest feedback about how we can improve, how we can become more agile? So asking unbiased questions. So framing your questions in a way that gets you the data you really want, that may hurt a little bit to get the answers, but at the end of the day is going to help us be better in business. Okay, staying in that posture. This is about being better at what we do, not fearing criticism. Okay, and then that probably ties into the next thing, which is obviously having the right people to talk to. All right. Have you ever watched some of those Idol shows, American Idol, Australian Idol? I assume they have them in other countries as well. or England or Great Britain's Got Talent and those sort of things, and and they're doing like an interview process, and they're like, oh, but my mum said I'm an amazing singer, or my dad said. In fact, we were talking about this on a call last week. We were talking about the mum test. I'd have to find that book. I can't remember it, but it's basically it's basically you get all the flattery and all the love from your mum or from close family, but are they the right people to be even asking? Are they the right people to be getting involved in your business when they just want the best for you and they want you to be good and feel good about where you're at? You need to get out and be asking the right people, getting unfiltered advice, all right? And always be checking and be checking and be checking, okay? So the right people to talk to. Who are the right people that you need to be catching up with? And then as we grow our business, we need to create a culture of listening. All right, so this happens internally and externally. So we're constantly gathering data from our clients. We're constantly gathering feedback. Often when I buy a product, I might get some feedback. When you go on Amazon, you can do star ratings, things like that, or different sites like that. When you're at a restaurant, often they might leave a comment card just sitting on the table that you can fill out. Those sorts of things. Plus you've got Google reviews, plus you've got Yelp reviews and all these different things. So firstly, I encourage you to use those. I encourage you to use those graciously and constructively. But always leave helpful, value-adding comments, but always expect your customers to do the same. Now, you're going to get some who just dump on you, all right? Someone's just had a bad day, you haven't met their need, whatever it might be, and they're going to hate you for it, okay? Because you're just there in the firing line. It's happened to me, it's happened to others, but one of the things that you need to understand is that, in fact, one of the great questions to ask is, I wonder what's going on in their world, in terms of that causes them to be like that causes them to want to be so angry and aggressive, okay? And maybe in there you find a different answer to the question and you can hear something different and then you can respond better to them and even turn it around. I've done that a number of times with customers who have had blow-ups, and we've been able to turn that customer around, with clients and whatever, just by changing our posture, just by listening a little bit better. And so understanding that a culture of listening, how do we listen to our own team? How do we listen to our investors? How do we listen to our suppliers? Let's really, really listen, asking good questions, being open to the fact that you haven't got it all together, okay? All those sorts of things. So really thinking about those things. How do we then create that culture? So what are the systems we need to put in place to listen well? How do we do that really well? Okay, so I guess what all of this does then, it creates a trust and loyalty where, somebody feels heard and, you are creating that posture of listening. And so there is a greater loyalty, there's a greater trust towards your brand, it's a greater trust and loyalty towards you as a person or as a leader, if it's internal as well. A greater trust from your suppliers, so they're going to supply more reliably and better, and they're going to help you out in difficult times. Okay, so understanding all of these things, that posture of listening is going to be massively, massively important. I always advise my clients, as I said at the beginning, that market research is marketing. All right, so as you're researching, as you're gathering data, as you're going out and talking and listening to your market, as you're going out and asking questions and listening to your market and listening to what they're saying and gathering that data, that's also an awesome opportunity to get your brand in front as a brand that will listen to you, okay? As a brand that will care about you. Remember, the customer wants to be cared about. We're all humans. We all want to be listened to. We all want to feel like we're valued, feel like we're heard, okay? That's just human nature. And so if you create that posture right from the start in your brand, that'd be an amazing thing for your business. Just that ability to listen, that ability to let somebody in, let them talk, let them even dump on you, but often it's just to open up and just talk about what's going on, so you can hear a better way, so you can hear a better opportunity to connect with them and to be able to build trust and loyalty with them. Market research is listening. Okay, that's one thing I want to get across today. We have talked about listening, but I really wanted to tie it in because we're talking to a business community here. I wanted to tie it into market research, to researching your market, to understanding your business. Make sure you are creating that culture of listening, getting constant feedback, and so we can gather real data, we can respond correctly and take the next best steps. I hope that's been helpful today. I want you to think about your listening culture in your business, in terms of your external business and internal. If you've got a team of people, investors, suppliers, any stakeholders in your business, remember to listen well, ask great questions, and act on what you're hearing. I'm Jonathan Brake. As always, enjoy the journey.